Here we go.
Whether one is a progressive or a Democrat, or whether one is a progressive or a Democrat, or whether one is a progressive or a Democrat,
The Russia story is a total fabrication.
Sources tell the Washington Post that the investigation has set its sights on top campaign members.
The Washington Post exposes the fact
this effort he made to broker a meeting
by Russians to meet with Donald Trump.
the fake news.
The government needs to be held accountable.
It looks like both sides are setting themselves up for a standoff.
I think the big question we have is what's next.
What the fuck are we gonna do as the people, man? We gotta start firing these motherfuckers.
one is a progressive or a Democrat or a conservative or a Republican or somewhere in between, there is a deep understanding in this country that we are living in a rigged economy, and people are increasingly angry and frustrated about the growing inequality and unfairness that they see all about them. It is hard to believe, but in the United States of America today, the top 1/10 of 1% now owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. 1/10 of 1%, bottom 90%. A study just came out fairly recently indicating that in the United States of America today, the three wealthiest people in our country, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, and Warren Buffett, now own more wealth than the bottom half of the American people. Three people own more wealth than the bottom half of the American people. Meanwhile, while the very, very rich get richer, some 40 million Americans are living in poverty. These are people who are struggling today to figure out how they put food on the table for their kids, how they put gas in the car, water to go to work, how they pay their electric bills, how they deal with child care. 40 million people living in poverty. Middle class is disappearing. People working 2 or 3 jobs. Young people, for the first time in the modern history of this country, may well have a standard of living lower than their parents. And on top of all of that, we remain the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all of our people. 28 million today have no health insurance. Many more are underinsured, and if our Republican colleagues get their way, they're going to throw another 20 or 30 million people off of the health insurance that they have. But it is not only the reality of grotesque levels of inequality that are making the American people despondent and angry. It is the reality that the people on top, with their wealth and with their power, can access lawyers and accountants who are able to manipulate the system to benefit themselves at the expense of everyone else. And that is the essence of what a rigged economy is about, and what I want to say a few words about today. In my view, one of the great crises facing our world, and we are in a world of many crises, is the rapid movement toward international oligarchy, in which a handful of billionaires own and control not just a significant part of the American economy, but a significant part of the world economy. This is, needless to say, an issue that does not get a whole lot of discussion, because in general, the more important the issues are, the less discussion they get within the corporate media or within the political world that we live in here.
Who is it? My bad. I'm stuck back on. I'm tripping off the food. Had my dope. GPS, I think. Fucking photo. What I don't know.
In the Congress. But let me reiterate that one of the great crises that we face is that a handful of billionaires are moving this entire planet toward an oligarchic society in which the people on top not only have incredible wealth, but incredible political power as well. On Sunday, just this last Sunday, a group of investigative journalists released over 13 million files known as the Paradise Papers, exposing just how horrific this situation has become. These papers show how a handful of oligarchs in the United States and throughout the world get richer by hiding their wealth and their profits offshore to avoid paying their fair share of taxes. The list of individuals implicated in the Paradise Papers include billionaires like the Koch brothers, Sheldon Adelson, Carl Icahn, and Robert Mercer. It includes large financial institutions such as Wells Fargo, Citigroup, and Bank of America. It includes large multinational corporations like Apple, Nike, and ExxonMobil. And it includes members of the Trump administration like Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross, Chief Economic Advisor Gary Cohn, and Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin. Let's be clear. Offshore tax evasion is a major problem not just for the United States, but for governments throughout the world. And this is really quite unbelievable. But in the year 2012, the Tax Justice Network estimated that at least $21 trillion, $21 trillion, a number almost beyond comprehension, is being stashed in offshore tax havens around the world. Imagine that. $21 trillion flowing into tax havens in the Cayman Islands, Bermuda, Luxembourg, all these places around the world where the billionaire class and large corporations are stashing their money, not only to avoid taxes in the United States, to avoid taxes in Great Britain, to avoid taxes in France, Germany, etc., etc. Now, you know, it's a funny thing about these guys. All of these billionaires, they love veterans, and they love the military, and they want to see us rebuild the infrastructure, and they want to see our kids get a good education. But you know what? They don't want to pay taxes to make that happen. They want ordinary people to pay the taxes. So Republicans here want to increase military spending by $50, $60 billion. Not the billionaires who are going to pay the taxes on that. They got their money in the Cayman Islands. It's the working class, the middle class, upper middle class who will pay, not the billionaires. They love America. Except when it comes to accepting their fair share to make sure that we continue to provide the services that our men, women, and children need. Now, the situation has become so absurd, and this is really how crazy it is, that one 5-story office building in the Cayman Islands is now the home of nearly 20,000 corporations. Now, as best I understand, this particular building in the Cayman Islands, it's called the Ugland House, is 5 stories. Now, I know that you can squeeze people into a building, sometimes 3 or 4 people live in a room. But I think it's a little bit hard to understand how 20,000 corporations function in a 5-story building. And of course, the answer is 20,000 corporations do not function in this 5-story building. It's all a fraud. It's simply a mailbox address for 20,000 corporations who are in this building
You how much money they
in
drop
order
inside it?
to
The government?
avoid paying their taxes. They're stashing
You'll go to jail
their
for not
profits and their
paying your
wealth
taxes.
in
You'll go to jail.
corporations
You'll go to jail.
that use this building as a mailing address. Mr. President, in the United States alone, I know we're busy talking about so-called tax reform here, but in the United States alone, offshore tax evasion costs our government about $166 billion in lost revenue each and every year. Now that is money, it's a lot of money, that can be used to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure, our roads, our bridges, our water systems. $1 trillion, it's 8 or 9 years of that $166 billion could create up to 15 million good-paying jobs. That is money that could be used to provide universal pre-K for our children, so that when kids get ready to go to school, they'll be prepared to do the work there. But instead of cracking down on offshore tax schemes, President Trump and my Republican colleagues in Congress are working overtime to pass legislation that would make this absurd situation even worse. At a time when corporations are making record-breaking profits, my Republican colleagues want to slash taxes for companies that are shifting American jobs to China and American profits to the Cayman Islands. At a time of massive wealth and income inequality, President Trump and the Republicans in Congress want to cut taxes for billionaires by repealing the estate tax on families who inherit over $5.5 million. Mr. President, I think the American people grasp the unfairness and the absurdity of the Republican tax proposal. Top 0.1% owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. Very, very rich are getting richer while the middle class is shrinking. And the Republican response is to give massive tax breaks to the top 0.2%. 0.2%. These are families like the Walton family, the wealthiest family in America, that owns Walmart, who would get up to a $50 billion tax break. Wow. The Koch brothers, who have enough money to spend hundreds of millions of dollars trying to elect right-wing candidates to Congress.
But it ain't got nothing to do with all that. It got everything to do with them trying to get
massive tax breaks
and they're gonna do all the bullshit all over
billionaires,
again.
and at the same time, an effort to throw up to 30 million people off of the health insurance they have, massive cuts in education, in nutrition, and the programs that working families desperately need. Mr. President, instead of providing even more tax breaks to very profitable corporations and to billionaires in President Trump's cabinet, maybe, just maybe, it might be a good idea to go forward to close offshore tax loopholes and demand a fair, transparent, and progressive tax system. So I would hope that the American people are catching on, as I believe they are, to what a fraud the Republican tax proposal is. Today, 1 out of 5 major profitable corporations already pay zero in federal income tax. Now, you can't do much better than paying zero in federal income tax and be a profitable corporation. But that's what's going on. Republicans want to make that even worse. And then they want millions of middle-class people by the end of the decade to be paying more in taxes. That is absurd, and I hope the American people stand up and demand that we do not go forward with that proposal.
What about all the proposals, bitch, that we ain't get to that damn vote on? There's a lot of them, bitches. Very easy, motherfucker. Very easy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this important hearing. Mr. Mnuchin, welcome. Mr. Chairman, during his campaign for president, Donald Trump told us that at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, the very, very rich are getting richer, almost everybody else is getting poorer, that he, Donald Trump, was going to stand up for the working families of this country. He was going to take on the establishment, and he was especially harsh on his words about Wall Street greed. He said he was going to drain the swamp. He said, and I quote, "We can't fix a rigged system by relying on the people who rigged it in the first place," end of quote. He said, "I'm not going to let Wall Street get away with murder. Wall Street has caused tremendous problems for us," end of quote. That's an exact quote from Donald Trump. He included language, pushed language into the Republican platform, which I happen to agree with, stating, quote, "We support reinstating the Glass-Steagall Act of 1933, which prohibits commercial banks from engaging in high-risk investment," end of quote. He said that he was the only person in America, the only one, who could take on the corrupt political and economic establishment. He said, quote, "We are going to send the special interest packing, and we are going to once again have a government of the people, by the people, and for the people," end of quote. Wow. Those are really dramatic statements. Here we have a president who he was going to take on Wall Street. He was going to stand up for the working families of this country. And those words, no doubt, must have gotten the billionaire class really, really nervous, because he was saying all these things during the campaign. Unfortunately, as I think most Americans understand, all of those words of Donald Trump were never meant to be taken seriously. It was just campaign rhetoric, good rhetoric, I must say, to get votes, but nothing that he ever had any intention of actually implementing. Donald Trump talked about draining the swamp, talked about taking on Wall Street, but he now has more billionaires in his administration than any president in American history. Funny way to take on the establishment by having more billionaires in your administration than any president in American history. His administration, this is the guy who's going to take on Wall Street, is filled with executive after executive from Goldman Sachs, one of the largest, the most powerful financial institutions on Wall Street. His chief economic advisor, Gary Cohn. Chief economic advisor Gary Cohn, who was the president of Goldman Sachs, and a man who received a $285 million severance package. His Treasury Secretary, and we're delighted that you're with us today, Secretary Mnuchin, worked at Goldman Sachs for 17 years. Mr. Chairman, one of the great scandals of our time, which is still impacting millions of Americans today, is that virtually every major Wall Street institution was involved in reckless, irresponsible, and illegal behavior, which led to the great crash of 2008, which caused massive unemployment in this country. People lost their homes, people lost their savings. We had financial institutions who sold mortgage-backed securities that were worthless while they ripped off low-income and working families throughout the country. In fact, among virtually every other major financial institution, as a result of their illegal activities, Goldman Sachs alone paid a fine of more than $5 billion to the federal government. But instead of reforming Wall Street, which is what the president said he would do, instead of reinstating Glass-Steagall, as he promised he would do during the campaign, President Trump endorsed a bill that passed the House last week that would deregulate Wall Street, increasing the odds of yet another taxpayer bailout even bigger than 2008.
Wow.
Campaign for Glass-Steagall, now he is deregulating Wall Street. In my view, if financial institutions are too big to fail, they are too big to exist. It is time to break them up.
Yep.
Now, Mr. Chairman, with a cabinet of billionaires, it should come as no surprise that the budget that President Trump has proposed has been written by the billionaire class and for the billionaire class.
Yep.
Frankly, this budget that we have recently received is the most anti-working class budget, the most destructive budget in the modern history of America. This budget follows in the footsteps of the Trump-Ryan health care bill, which gives massive tax breaks to the people on top and throws 23 million Americans off of health insurance, cuts Medicaid by over $800 billion, funds Planned Parenthood. The Trump budget, and I hope to be questioning Mr. Mnuchin about this, would cause devastating pain to tens of millions of families in our country by cutting nutrition programs, by slashing Head Start, by making massive cuts to affordable housing, by doing away with programs, life and death programs for working families. But guess what? Guess what? As part of the budget, we're looking at $3 trillion in tax breaks over a 10-year period to the top 1%.
Wow.
So the very rich get richer. Working class in this country is shrinking. Trump budget gives unbelievable tax breaks to the wealthiest family in this country. It is an immoral budget. It is a budget that must be defeated by the United States Congress. Mr. Mnuchin, as you know, the estate tax applies only to the top 0.2% of 1%. 99.8% of Americans will not gain a nickel if the estate tax were repealed. So my first question is, why do you think, at a time when the middle class is shrinking and millions of our families are struggling to put bread on the table, they're working 50, 60, 70 hours a week, not uncommon in my state of Vermont, the people who are working 3 jobs. Why do you think it is a good idea to throw 23 million people off of health insurance, to cut nutrition programs for low-income pregnant women and their babies? Why do you think it's a good idea to make massive cuts in LIHEAP so that older people in Vermont can stay warm in the wintertime? Why do you think it's a good idea when all over this country people are paying 50, 60% of their limited incomes for housing? Why do you think it's a good idea to make massive cuts in those programs and yet, with regard to repealing of the estate tax, give the wealthiest family in this country, the Walton family, up to a $52 billion tax break? Do you think most Americans who are struggling think it's a great idea to cut programs that impact working families and give unbelievable tax breaks to the wealthiest families in America?
Thank you for your question. Let me first assure you that as part of tax reform, the president very much wants us to have a middle-income tax cut that's focused on spurring the economy. Now, as it relates to the estate tax, the super rich have plenty of gimmicks so that they don't need to pay the estate tax. This is about eliminating the estate tax so that Americans who have built businesses and created jobs and want to pass those companies on and continue their farms, continue their industry, don't have to sell those businesses to pay the death tax.
No, actually, that's not what it's about. In fact, my good friend, Chairman Enzi, mentioned ranchers and farmers, and we're all concerned about it. Last study I saw thought that maybe 50 ranchers and farmers may be impacted. What this is really about, we should be honest about it, is that people like the Koch brothers, second wealthiest family in America, have spent hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to get benefits like this. So do you really think when you talk about families like the Koch brothers and the Walton family, and by the way, the Trump family, who would get something like a $4 billion tax break, do you really think that it makes sense, again, to cut programs that people desperately need to stay alive, and give massive tax breaks to the children of the wealthiest family in this country?
Well, I'm not going to comment on the specifics of the Waltons or the Kochs. I'm sure they've done plenty of estate planning, and they've both been very philanthropic in their charitable contributions. What this budget is about, and our tax reform is about creating 3% growth. And what this budget is about is sending a message that, one, the Trump administration believes we should have a balanced budget, and two, we've made very difficult decisions, and I understand some of those programs I agree with are quite worthy, but we've made very difficult decisions to fund the military to protect Americans.
I apologize for interrupting. We just don't have a lot of time, so please accept my apology here. You made difficult decisions to give tax breaks to multi-billionaires and to cut programs for working families. I don't think those are difficult decisions. I think those are immoral decisions. Let me ask you another question. President Trump campaigned on the fact that he was going to take on Wall Street. He supported a 21st Century Glass-Steagall Act. That's what he said during the campaign. You just recently introduced a report on Wall Street reform. Can you tell me where I could find the establishment of a 21st Century Glass-Steagall Act, which would separate commercial banking from risky investment banking, something the President campaigned on? What page might I find?
Okay. First of all, let me just comment that I think, as you know, I had the pleasure of traveling the country with the President during the campaign. I met with hundreds and hundreds of small and medium-sized businesses. During the campaign, we specifically said that we believed in a 21st century Glass-Steagall that was differentiated from what was the Republican Party view of Glass-Steagall.
Well, let me get this right. I don't mean to interrupt you, Mr. Chairman.
But you are interrupting me. You're not letting me finish my comment.
But I have very limited time, and what you're saying is that the language that Trump put into the Republican platform is not really the language that he believed in.
Again, let me be clear. The President did not put everything into the Republican platform. There was the Republican platform, and there was the Trump position, which I was very involved in. And I had the pleasure of speaking to Senator Warren about this when I testified several weeks ago, and I followed up with her office and had a personal meeting with her, and I explained to her the difference between what we had thought of as a 21st century Glass-Steagall and Glass-Steagall, and made it very clear in my last testimony in front of the Senate that the President did not support breaking up big banks. We think that that would hurt the economy, that would ruin liquidity in the market. What we are focused on is safe and prudent regulation for the large banks so we don't have taxpayer risk.
In other words, the Trump campaign campaigned on reinstating Glass-Steagall.
No, it did not. It never campaigned on that, Senator. And
we just put it into the Republican platform, I stand.
Again, we differentiated, and we were very clear. And as I had said to Senator Warren, if we believed in it, we would have not labeled it a 21st century.
That's the name of legislation right now. And
I understand that's hers, and that's an unfortunate coincidence.
Right.
I want to bring in Andrea Nicosher. She's an assistant professor at Buffalo State University. She's the mother of 3 boys, and she has a question for Senator Cruz. Andrea.
Senator Cruz, while I do not mind paying the state taxes required to make New York one of the best states in the country, I've come to rely on that SALT, state and local tax deduction, and it's actually been on the books since income tax code was invented in 1913. It seems to me that many GOP senators from red states are deliberately trying to punish blue Democratic states by removing the SALT deduction, which benefits higher tax states. To me, this seems both unethical and bad policy. So my question for you is, why would a middle-class working mom like myself support taking away the middle-class SALT deduction so that the wealthy Americans like you can get more money? Thank you.
Well, Andrea, thank you for your question. Thank you for being here. Let me make a couple of points. Number one, I agree with you. The objective of tax reform should be cutting everyone's taxes. Cutting people's taxes in blue states, cutting people's taxes in red states. And if we don't do that, we've done something wrong. That's what I'm urging in Congress, that we should cut everybody's taxes. You're a mom with 3 kids, we need to be cutting your taxes. Now, I'll tell you, the state and local tax deduction is taken overwhelmingly by those earning $200,000 a year or more. It's those who are itemizing their taxes. It tends to be the wealthy. Now, I favor eliminating that deduction. Why? Because I don't think the federal government should be incentivizing states and local governments to jack up their taxes. But let me give a big caveat. I wouldn't favor eliminating that deduction unless we are lowering the tax rate enough that people in New York State, that people in Orange County, California, are paying less in total taxes. They're not deducting their state and local taxes, but the rate's a lot lower, so the check they're writing at the end of the day is smaller. And I will say, it's interesting you bring up New York. People vote with their feet. High taxes, what Bernie and the Democrats envisioning, jacking up taxes, we see it state by state. If you look at the 10 states with the highest tax rates, they have all seen, or virtually all seen, 9 of the 10 have seen population fleeing. Of the 10 highest states with tax burden, and New York is number 1, sadly, 240,000 people left those 10 states in 2015. And of the 10 states with the lowest tax burden, saw a net influx of 100,000 people in 2015. People are voting with their feet, and it's a combination of things. Number 1, people are tired of sending more and more of their paycheck to the government. But number 2, the high taxes and high regulations are killing jobs. The reason why you see people coming from high-tax states to low-tax states is in a state like Texas where we have low taxes, there are jobs. Jobs are plentiful. Young people have opportunity coming out. And so I agree we should lower taxes for everyone. But we see state by state an illustration of how what Bernie and the Democrats are proposing doesn't work, and people vote with their feet every single day.
Senator Sanders? First of all, let's be clear that at a time when Senator Cruz is fighting to provide 80% of the benefits to the top 1%, 30% of the middle class, because of the point that you raised, are going to be paying more in taxes. So I do not believe that everybody deserves a tax break. As I mentioned earlier, the former president from your state, George W. Bush, he gave very large tax breaks to the wealthy in corporate America. We lost 500,000 private sector jobs, and the national deficit soared. So this idea of giving tax breaks to large corporations is basically a fraud. Listen to what Ronald Reagan's domestic policy advisor, Bruce Bartlett, said. He said that virtually what every Republican says about taxes today is a lie. Reagan's OMB director, David Stockman, said that the idea that closing loopholes and adding growth will pay for trillions in cuts, quote, is just completely fanciful and irresponsible. The people in the Reagan administration understand that when you give huge tax breaks to very, very wealthy people, the loss of revenue is not made up by economic growth. It's a fraudulent theory developed by the wealthy people. Just coincidentally, big money think tanks think it's a great job, great idea to give tax breaks to the wealthy. Isn't that a great surprise? I happen to believe that if you want to really get the economy moving, you do things like raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, put money into the hands of working people, provide targeted tax breaks to small businesses and working people, rebuild our crumbling infrastructure, creating 15 million jobs. When you make public colleges and universities tuition-free, millions of people will now have the opportunity to go out and get the decent-paying jobs that are being created today that today they can't get. And when we do what every other major country on earth does, and finally acknowledge that health care is a right of all people and not a privilege, by passing a Medicare for all single-payer system, this will not only help working people all over this country, it will help small businesses who no longer have to spend half their lives figuring out how they're going to pay for the health insurance their workers need.
Senator Chris, I just want to follow up, if I can, for 1 second about the state and local tax deduction about SALT, because a study from the Government Finance Officers Association found that 28 million middle-class American households took this deduction in 2015. So you're talking about helping middle-class Americans. 28 million households in that bracket took the SALT deduction. You're talking about
We've got to lower the rate enough that those 28 million are paying less than taxes. The objective on this is to cut everybody's taxes. And you know, it was interesting. I'll say a couple of things. Number one, you know, Bernie talks about all the things he wants the federal government to spend on. He wants free education for everyone. He wants free health care for everyone. He wants a chicken in every pot.
No,
you noticed he hasn't said, look, if he were in Colorado, it'd be pot in every chicken, but that's different. You know what he hasn't told you? A single bit of government spending he'd cut, because I don't think it exists.
Oh, yeah. You want to ask me the question?
And let me say beyond that, he also hasn't addressed how you pay for all this. Look, you think health care is expensive now, wait till it's free.
Okay.
The costs that are associated, and he's never once addressed the fact confiscating the millionaires doesn't pay for it. So Bernie read, hold on a second, I didn't interrupt you. Okay. Bernie read several quotes. Let me read a quote back at you. Our present income tax rate structure now holds back consumer demand, initiative, and investment. The largest single barrier to full employment of our manpower and resources, and to a higher rate of economic growth, is the unrealistically heavy drag on federal income taxes, on private purchasing power, initiative, and incentive. Now, you know who it was that said that? It was John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy was a passionate advocate of cutting taxes. John F. Kennedy would be drummed out of the Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren Democratic Party because he campaigned on cutting taxes. And not only that, he promised, he said, if we cut taxes, we'll get 5% economic growth. And you know what happened? He came into office, he cut taxes, and he saw 5% economic growth. The same thing happened under Ronald Reagan, where he cut taxes and the economy took off. Jimmy Carter and Obama raised taxes and the economy went into a nosedive.
Fact check. Ronald Reagan raised taxes 4 separate times.
Which was more?
Four
the decrease?
separate.
Hold on, you said he cut
that is, no. You forgot to mention that. The reason he raised taxes 4 separate times is because lack of revenue coming in from his tax breaks. Now, second of all, let me. You asked me a question. What program did I cut? Now, Ted, I gather you are a big deficit hawk, yeah?
Indeed.
Okay. And that's why you are supporting legislation that would increase the national debt by $1.5 trillion over 10 years. But above and beyond that, you asked me a fair question. I said, okay, what programs would I cut? Ted, how'd you vote on the authorization bill for the Department of Defense, which increased military spending by, if I'm not mistaken, $70 billion? So that we are now spending more on the military than the next 12 nations combined. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ted. I think you voted for that huge increase in military spending. Is that right or not?
I voted enthusiastically, yes, and I will accept as your friendly amendment. You will slash the military. You'll cut the Army and Navy and Marines and Air Force, but you won't cut anything else. So I agree. You'll cut the military. And I think that's an enormous mistake.
Now we're going to
cut. You would cut the military.
Okay.
I'll concede.
All right. But don't concede for me. You have to explain to people.
You would cut the military. I wouldn't. That's a real difference.
Cut the military.
Democrats want to cut the military. Republicans want to defend our nation. That's a real difference.
That is inaccurate statement. What was the vote on that authorization?
Would you cut the military?
What was the vote? You just said
I voted yes. You voted no.
Correct. But how many people voted no?
Oh, I don't know, but this is a great point.
There was about 10. Well, let me finish. All right, there was
about. You're asking me a question. Let me respond to it.
You said Democrats voted to cut the military. In fact, they did. Overwhelmingly, they voted the same way you did. I voted no. Because I think that at a time when we have people working 2 or 3 jobs trying to make ends meet, where kids can't afford to go to college or leaving school deeply in debt, I happen not to think that spending $70 billion more on the military and giving a huge boondoggle to the military-industrial complex that Dwight D. Eisenhower warned us about, I think that was not a good idea. I'll tell you what else I would cut. I would end a lot of the tax wealth. I would tell you what else I would cut would be oil subsidies and tax breaks. You work beyond that. We're going to do away with the
What
billions of
subsidies
dollars.
you're talking about?
Oh, the oil depletion allowance.
That's ordinary expensing that every other business has. But you want to punish one particular sector.
I don't want to punish them.
Every energy source fairly. And I'll give an example of that. I went to Iowa and campaigned on ending the ethanol mandate, which is corporate welfare. You, of course, wouldn't end the corporate welfare and campaign in the same state, correct?
We have a lot more to talk about corporate welfare, about the deficit.
Just say this.
We have to
take a quick break.
We have to make some money here. Thank you.
Watch the tape, people.
47 years ago. 7 years, 47 days. I'm quite confident in my recollections.
10 years. It's a good deal.
It's an enema of sunshine. Man's the court for white folks. You're insane. Denzel Washington is Roman J. Israel Esquire. Rated PG-13.
Is an outstanding advocate on behalf of Down syndrome research and on behalf of the families that deal with the issue. So, Mr. Stevens, you're recognized for whatever opening comments you care to make.
Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee, just so there is no confusion, let me say that I am not a research scientist. However, no one knows more about life with Down syndrome than I do. Whatever you learn today, please remember this. I am a man with Down syndrome, and my life is worth living. Sadly, across the world, a notion is being sold that maybe we don't need research concerning Down syndrome. Some people say prenatal screens will identify Down syndrome in the womb, and those pregnancies will just be terminated. It's hard for me to sit here and say those words. I completely understand that the people pushing this particular final solution are saying that people like me should not exist. That view is deeply prejudiced by an outdated idea of life with Down syndrome. Seriously, I have a great life. I have lectured at universities, acted in an award-winning film and an Emmy-winning TV show, and spoken to thousands of young people about the value of inclusion in making America great. I have been to the White House twice, and I didn't have to jump the fence either time. Seriously, I don't feel I should have to justify my existence. But to those who question the value of people with Down syndrome, I would make 3 points. First, we are a medical gift to society, a blueprint for medical research into cancer, Alzheimer's, and immune system disorders. Second, we are an unusually powerful source of happiness. A Harvard-based study has discovered that people with Down syndrome, as well as their parents and siblings, are happier than society at large. Surely happiness is worth something. Finally, we are the canary in the eugenics coal mine. Is there really no place for us in the NIH budget? On a deeply personal note, I cannot tell you how much it means to me that my extra chromosome might lead to the answer to Alzheimer's. It is likely that this thief will one day steal my memories, my very life, from me. This is very hard for me to say, but it has already begun to steal my mom from me. Please think about all those people you love, the way I love my mom. Help us make this difference. If not for me and my mom, then for you and the ones you love. Fund this research. Let's be America, not Iceland or Denmark. Let's pursue answers, not final solutions. Let's be America. Let's make our goal to be Alzheimer's free, not Down syndrome free. Thank you.
A driver put on blast by the Fort Bend County Sheriff.
This is a very quiet community, a very family-oriented county, and many people are offended by the language.
Driving while anti-Trump. A photo now going viral and prompting an internet debate over free speech. The sheriff would like to find that driver and just in tonight. We did. You'll hear from her shortly.
But first, the debate. Many of you are giving us your input on our KPRC Facebook page right now. Here's how it has escalated over the past few hours. At 3:30, 11 shares and hundreds of likes. At 4:30, the number of shares soared well past 100. And at 5:30 this evening, that number even higher.
Anusha Rasta joining us live from Fort Bend County, where Sheriff Troy Nels is standing by his decision to post that picture. Anusha.
Bill Dominique, Sheriff Nels tells us that he understands the message on the sticker is protected under the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, but he argues it could potentially cause a violent confrontation in the streets. A sticker on a truck seen in Fort Bend County with an offensive term against President Trump and those who voted for him is prompting law enforcement to step in. The big question, should law enforcement get involved?
The fact that it offends people doesn't mean that anybody, particularly law enforcement, has the right to act as a censor.
Attorney and Channel 2 legal analyst Brian Weiss tells us this sticker with the F word against Trump and his voters is protected under the First Amendment of the Constitution. In fact, Weiss cites a 1971 U.S. Supreme Court case, Cohen versus California. A man wears a jacket in a courthouse with the F word about the draft.
And the United States Supreme Court said that four-letter word, as it regards the draft, could not be the basis for a breach of the peace citation any more, in my estimation, than this could be the basis of a disorderly conduct charge.
In a post on Facebook, Fort Bend County Sheriff Troy Nels posted a picture of the truck and the sticker, saying in part, quote, "Our prosecutor informed us she would accept disorderly conduct charges regarding it, but I feel we could come to an agreement regarding a modification to it."
I want to reach out to the owner of the truck and just say, hey, listen, the last thing we need to do is see anyone have any type of confrontation over the language on your truck.
I think it's very disrespectful to the president.
And I'm not agreeing with it. It should be removed.
They can say what they want, but I don't like the cuss words on it.
I don't think people are offended, and if they are, they just need to take a deep breath, change the channel, drive by the car, and get on with their lives.
And the ACLU of Texas responded to Sheriff Troy Nell's Facebook post about the truck sticker, saying, quote, Sheriff Troy E. Nell's Constitutional Law 101. You can't ban speech just because it has the F word in it. Hey, truck owner, feel free to contact the ACLU of Texas. Reporting live in Fort Bend County tonight, Anusha Rasta, KPRC, Channel 2 News.
And just within the past 30 minutes, we found that driver.
Turns out it's a woman, and she lives in Fort Bend County. Let's go live now to our Sophia Beausoleil with that driver's reaction to all of this. Sophia?
Well, the driver told me she and her husband put this sticker on the back of their white truck about a year ago. And she says she's surprised by all the noise of it, she says, because they've had it up there for quite some time. Now, she says she and her husband put it on the back of the truck because they
Highway 6 on there.
I'm here because I believe in justice. And now police officers are coming close to the gate.
You heard the brrrr and was like, run now.
And hatred is what caused all of this. This hatred. God don't play hatred.
I lost everything. Just like that.
People care more than you think.
Want to express how they felt in regards to the presidential election and when it comes to the political climate of the country. She says it's her First Amendment right, and she says she's received different types of reactions, but she explained to us most of them have been positive in her eyes.
I thought the whole thing was just totally crazy. It's been on there for such a long time, and we have so much positive out of it, that more positive that outweighs the negative.
Karen Fonseca says she's a mother of 12 children, and coming up at 10 o'clock, we're going to hear more from her in regards to this sticker. About 24 hours, the sheriff, after the sheriff posted the photo of the truck on Facebook, the driver has been arrested.
And Walmart not giving the motherfucking lawyer the fucking case. And my lawyer dropping me. And then another lawyer tell me that I need to pay for to get the motherfucking attorney. And then they don't never call me back. I'm constantly calling them, and they don't never call me back.
That's
I
right.
don't need no
Detectives
motherfucking lawyer to
arrested
be
her
my
for
lawyer. I'm my own
fraudulent use or
motherfucker.
possession of identifying information. The husband says he has no idea what that's about, but he says it is quite a coincidence.
It's been a misery, hell, all kinds of stuff.
Miguel Fonseca never thought he'd be here trying to bail his wife out of jail. His wife is Karen Fonseca, the woman who's been the face of this controversial anti-Trump decal on her truck.
My wife called me. She's the one that called me and told me that they're coming to pick her up. Because about something that she did, I guess, in like 2015, 2016.
Miguel says detectives came to their home around 1:30 this afternoon, just hours after we spoke with her.
It's been more overwhelming. It's people are stopping and wanting to shake your hand, asking to take pictures with you in the truck, and they're just like, go for stand behind what you're standing behind. Nobody can stop you.
Detectives told him they had a warrant for her arrest since August. This arrest came just a day after Fort Bend County Sheriff Troy Nehls posted this, saying she could be charged. Today, the sheriff deleted the post. The DA's office said charges in this situation would not be accepted. Her husband today is questioning the timing.
I guess this sticker's causing a lot of problems. But as I said yesterday, it's going to stay up there, no matter what.
And now to the story that just continues to have more twists and turns, all stemming from a controversial anti-Trump decal on a truck. This quickly became national news after the Fort Bend County Sheriff posted that picture on Facebook on Wednesday. Since then, the owner of the truck has been found and then arrested on an unrelated warrant. Channel 2 reporter Ryan Korsgaard live in Fort Bend County, where people are trying to keep up with all the developments in this one. Ryan?
And when she was arrested here, she told us she had no earthly idea of why. Tonight, we have a clearer picture. When Karen Fonseca left the Fort Bend County Jail on Thursday night, she said she had no idea that there was a warrant out for her arrest. Fonseca believes the arrest is in retaliation for her offensive sticker on her truck related to President Donald Trump. Fort Bend County Sheriff Troy Nehls told KPRC2 that this was not the case.
I've never even known I had one.
Court documents show she is accused of fraud and possessing identifying information in 2014. The case was filed in July of this year with an arrest warrant issued in August arrest. Deputies arrested Fonseca yesterday. Rosenberg police say the warrant is out of their department, which did not contact the Fort Bend County Sheriff's Office about that warrant. Instead, the police said the Sheriff's Office served the warrant on its own. Rosenberg police said that they would have served their own warrant.
I want to reach out to the owner of the truck.
On Wednesday, the sheriff posted a picture online of the sticker on the truck. The sheriff removed that post after the truck's owner was identified and his office received threats. Sheriff Nails said that he did not know Fonseca. However, he confirmed she worked in the county jail from 2014 to 2015.
Wow. Karen, obviously, there's a lot of talk in regards to what's on your window.
It's real how crooked this shit is, man. This shit is real crooked.
As first responders, we must always be ready to protect our community.
No matter how quickly we act, a dependable blood supply must be readily available.
Blood donors are the first responders when a need arises, and the need is always there.
Please do not wait for an emergency to give blood.
Commit for life.
And donate regularly. So that together, we may always be ready to save lives.
I think it's crazy the way it's all brought to attention after it's been here for almost 11 months on there.
You know, this all kind of came about because the sheriff put out, hey, if you know this individual, I'd like to speak with them. What are your thoughts on the fact that he's looking for you?
I thought that was crazy as well. I was working and I got a couple of calls through Messenger, people that don't even know my number. Look at Facebook. I said, I don't have the time. They're like, but you're being wanted. I said, for what? Because of your sticker. And they were laughing and I'm like, oh wow, that's crazy. Look, I really have to get back to work. So when I had a chance to look at it, I thought the whole thing was just totally crazy. It's been on there for such a long time and we have so much positive out of it, that more positive that outweighs the negative.
Do you feel like it's, invading your First Amendment right?
I do feel like it, because he is a sheriff. He has every means. He went ahead and posted the license tag. You can pull that up and contact me on your own or show up. I mean, look, y'all don't know me. Y'all found me. He could have done that. At the same time, I feel it is an invasion of privacy and everything else, because putting me on his Facebook page is a blast.
And do you feel that there's another way to do this?
Like I said, I feel like he has every means. He could have just called me on or showed up over here and talked to me on a personal level. The reasons that he has for it is because of people's opinions about their children, etc. I understand. I have 12 children of my own. At the same time, what we have on the back of the truck is nothing compared to what you see every day on the music videos, see on TV, and these kids playing on their games, Call of Duty, etc. This is nothing.
Nothing.
Unless you're going to put your kids in a bubble, you can't blame it on your children.
You want to be motherfucking police, motherfucking grown up. Ain't police fucking grown up. Ain't nobody mama no motherfucking daddy. Kind of fucking bullshit is that? People gonna get it because y'all ragged dog headed police and think y'all can do whatever the fuck y'all think y'all wanna do. That's fucked up where y'all put somebody in jail and harass some fucking body with some bullshit like that, yeah. Some bullshit. Now that person had to go through going to jail and shit. Dealing with you and your bullshit. Piece of shit, you.
Before that, we had a different truck last year when people were voting for Trump, and we had a small sticker that said F Trump on it. Our truck was stolen in December. When we bought this new truck, we went and got this enlarged one and put it on. And we've been driving it, and we've got stopped by numerous officers. And at the same time, I'm like, they're going to give me a ticket. Okay, if you can show me in the law book where you can give me a ticket, they couldn't find a code, so they couldn't.
They ain't got no code.
There is no law against freedom of speech in Texas.
Do you feel like there's a certain irony where, the government's trying to tell you what to do, yet at the same time, the other side may be against the government?
I don't think it's the government. I think it's the sheriff at one point on his own, because he said he's had numerous calls. Well, so have multiple police departments, and I'm not going to name them, that have told me they've had multiple calls. But at the same time, they stop me and shake my hand and say, there's nothing we can do about it. There's no law against it. But he wants to take it to his hand and put it on a public page. There is no law. I don't think the government has not contacted me. He's the one that blasted it, not them.
And at this point, now the news is involved and all this other stuff. I mean, do you feel that this is all warranted for what's on the back of your truck? Would you change anything?
I wouldn't change it. I'm going to leave it. There's no law that's telling me that I can't. My husband, yes, if he could be here, he's at work. But I have a smaller demeanor than he does. He would go ahead and say things that you can't post, but he would not change it, I guarantee.
And have you talked to the sheriff yet? Have you?
No, I haven't. Not personally. No.
Has he reached out to you?
No, he has not. I have not reached out to him. When I was contacted about it, I work in the vehicle, so I'm in it all day long. All day. Until 4 o'clock I came off duty in my truck. Nobody reached out to me, but I've looked at posts here and there, but so many are popping up I can't even keep up with it. And I think he dug himself a hole in it to bring it up. Because first of all, to go ahead and find a prosecutor that's going to go ahead and give me a charge for disorderly conduct when there's not a law against it, how can you do that? I can contact the district attorney's office. I can guarantee you they're going to say he's in the wrong.
And at this point, are you worried and fearful to drive your truck?
No, I'm not. I've been driving it all day. I'll continue to drive it. I've driven it multiple times. I drive it all the time on a daily basis. I'm not fearful at all. There's too much positive, and it makes people smile. They honk their horn. They give you a thumbs up. There is some negativity. I won't say that because we're a diversified community. There's some negativity, but the positivity outweighs the negativity.
John, do you have any questions?
I really don't know what the reasons are for him doing this. The only thing I can think of is, like he said, that he's had numerous phone calls that warranted him. But at the same time, why would you post it on your Facebook page? Reach out. You have the means to reach out to trace that license tag number. And that's one thing I did not like. Why would you post my license tag number out there? Because there is some people that do not like it. Why would you put me inside a violation of my rights as well?
Have you had strangers contact you? Or?
Not since this post, no. I have had people contact me in parking lots. Somebody handed me a $50 bill today and said, keep going with what you're going. And I saw this on Facebook. And a lot of positive, no negative today.
Thank you, Karen. I appreciate your time.
It's like the shit that motherfucking news going on. I don't know if the news that what the fuck happened to me. News. Kick the ass. Fuck y'all want to kick ass news. Asshole. I be doing that because it got something to do with Trump.
And I have not failed you in warning you of what the government of the United States of America has been planning against black people generally, but black youth in particular, and the Nation of Islam. Now, you may not have been listening, but you're going to listen today. Because we're at the end of this now. I had to think about this. Reagan met with the Joint Chiefs of Staff, okay, in early September. Wow. But I don't know who the war is against. He didn't say. That was for me to study. But the formula was so deep. I went on a tour, world tour, and while I was in Africa, boy, America, you have been something, because you knew when you heard me in 84 that Elijah was back. And he was back in that young man that was talking. He's back today. And now, in the fullness of these 32 years, I'm going to run real quick over 6 presidents that have met with their Joint Chiefs of Staff to plan a war in the Islamic world and to plan a war against black people and particularly black youth. And we're at the end of it now. The plan is to genocide and kill you all. Listen to me good now. I'm going to drop it in the president's lap because he's the last one. never loved us. When Reagan was the governor in California, he and Edwin Meese, who later became his attorney general, they were planning war games in California. And the war games were not against some foreign enemy. The war games were against black people. Right. And this has continued from 6 presidents. And the slickest of them all, Tricky Dick was before, but Slick Willie, you caught more hell under the Clinton administration, and you thought he was our first black president. But I want to run the presidents down so you could see that the government of America has been planning our demise. Any members of Congress here, any members of the civil rights movement that are here, you love this nation. You've suffered every indignity to make America better, that she might be great. And every time you forced her to make a law that was in our favor, they came right behind that law with skill and chicanery to make the law of non-effect. This started in 1876 in the Hayes-Tilden presidential election. It was so close they didn't know who it was, who the winner was. So they met here in Washington at the Wormley Hotel. It's not here now. In 1877. But the election was in 1876. Thank you. I know what I'm saying, brother. I need help, though. But when I need it, I'll call you. In the Wormley Hotel, the white members of Congress made a deal that Rutherford B. Hayes would be president. But Tilden, being in Congress, the deal was that when we were so-called emancipated, Abraham Lincoln sent federal troops into the South to make sure that black people were treated better. But the deal was, if you let Rutherford B. Hayes be president, we'll take all the federal troops out of the South, and then you all can go back to doing what you do. That was called the Great Betrayal of the so-called American Negro in 1877. Now, to the Jewish people in this hall, you weren't there. But there was a Jewish man named Levy who was in Congress. And he sold the agreement that was made in the hotel to the members of Congress, and it became policy. And Reconstruction then was over. In 12 years, black people had built over 60 towns because we were the artisans, we were the craftsmen, we were the builders. 12 years, we were in Congress. We had high positions. But after that agreement came the Ku Klux Klan, the Night Riders, slave codes, black codes, and members of the Jewish community who owned a lot of the plantations. Please don't get angry and upset, because this is real history. You put us back on the plantation as sharecroppers. You began riding down on us, and if any of us escaped the plantation, many of the Irish that were coming over were they call them the paddy wagon. They would come after us and bring us back to the plantation. Those were hard days. Hard days. Guess what? When the Emancipation Proclamation so-called set us free, we were the builders, we were the architects, we were the brick masons, we were the carpenters, we were the plumbers, we were all of that. If you saw a white man with a hammer in his hand, he was going to beat some black man, but he wasn't building nothing. Then, in this book, which we researched from Jewish scholars, historians, rabbis, over 2,000 footnotes. And when they told me, Farrakhan, that book is a great calumny against the Jewish people, they said, we want you to denounce that book. Because it's false. I said to Irv Kutzinet, Rabbi Shalman, and a few rabbis I met in their home. They said, Farrakhan, you must denounce the book. I said, fine. If it's false, I don't want to have nothing to do with it. I said, but everyone that we quoted is a Jewish scholar, a Jewish rabbi, or a Jewish historian. So I'll denounce it, but you have to denounce everyone that we quoted as liars. Now look, all is fair. In love. They told me, if you want our friendship, we have to watch you over a protracted period of time. Yeah, imagine. And I was supposed to be like a little Negro because I'm in their house. They say, yes, sir. When we got finished with them that day, the war was on. Because I told them, I don't mind being your friend. That's why I'm here. But if being your friend means I got to deny the truth, then yours is a friendship I don't need, and yours is a friendship I don't want. So you all know that when you got a black man that's not going to bow to you, then that's trouble, because you've been waiting for the Messiah. And you know that he comes to end your civilization. So when you hear a black man talking like Farrakhan is talking. You hear the end coming, and if you can stop him, if you can shut his mouth, if you can kill him, Ronald Reagan wanted to kill Gaddafi. When I found out the war was against Gaddafi, I was in Benin and in Ghana and in Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso. And I sent all my family back, and I flew to Libya. All of Gaddafi government was in my hotel, and I told them my vision. They ran out of that room like raid had been there. And the next thing I knew, Brother Gaddafi said he wanted me to speak and introduce him the next day, and 80 nations of the non-aligned movement were in Libya. And I stood in Tripoli and repeated that experience on the wheel and told Gaddafi what they were going to do. They were going to bomb the airport, destroy the water project. He listened. He got his airplanes out into the Sudan. The next thing I knew, an American plane was shot down, and one of those fine aircraft carriers that Mr. Trump brought over to Asia was in the Gulf of Sirte. But something happened to him. By the time I got to Saudi Arabia, it came out in the Arab news that there was a bright object over the Mediterranean. Just listen to me. I'll die on what I'm telling you. And I said to those with me, I said the wheel was there. The electronic equipment on the aircraft carrier was messed up. So it had to go back to Florida. In the meantime, I was able to get out of Libya. I got into Saudi Arabia, and a few days later, the bombs dropped on Libya. It was the greatest assassination attempt, most expensive in history. So they always wanted Gaddafi. But what I did not know was the war at that time was on two fronts. It was war with a Muslim country in Africa, but war on the nation of Islam and Islam, period, in America. Reagan was doing
all I can say, people, is when you sit there and you think about it, it ain't nothing but a whole bunch of motherfucking bullshit when all it really takes is for the fucking loving fucking people to come to fucking together against the hating motherfuckers that's bullshit at the top of this shit, because we as the people don't have shit to fucking be fighting about. We don't own shit. They own everything. We fighting for fucking scraps. We fighting for they fucking leftovers. And we are the people who make the world go round. I'm not gonna say what the brown people done from the beginning to now. We just gonna put it as in all fucking breeding in the divine creator's elvish being, the creator within us, to know the truth is us. Just talk and tell it. You breathe it all day, every day. Your heart beat it. The vibrations that you magnetize to be in this body. That's what makes the creator so divine. Being in you, with you at all times. For you never to be alone, but to never control your mind or make you do what you don't want. It's all the will in you. Because the truth is in you. The truth is all around you, a part of it. We live because of this magnetic rotational pull of this earth and the creator within us to tell it, to know it. Don't bullshit. The bullshit is what we was taught to believe in. To never know what all the power is within you, being the reason why you go. We was all put here to help each other out, because two is always better than one. That's why the creator started it all off with two people instead of just one. Man and woman developed just like a cocoon and a butterfly. It wasn't until the liquid of the two beings coming together, and that's the reasons why. You have conscious thought, reciprocity, and empathy is embedded in your heart, which is the only thing inside your body that's truly smart, because it do what it's supposed to do all day, every day. It pumps the body throughout the body. It pumps the blood throughout the body. It never sucks it. I ain't about the separation bullshit. A lot of people are all about what the truth is. It's all about us, the people, waking the fuck up. And being the people and not the fucking sheeple. Come on, people, wake the fuck up. I'm Mr. Glasses. I love you more than you love yourself. I'm out of there. Peace.